Hey there, hey friends, Ken here, your Thrifty Apprentice, and welcome back to another Thrifty Review video. Happy Saturday, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking a look at the SoHo Urban Artist 15 half pan artist watercolor set. SoHo Urban Artist, as most of you may know from watching the channel, is a house brand of Jerry's Artarama, which is a big box fine art store. I picked these up out of my local Jerry's a couple of weeks back, and I've had them in backstash, and we've finally getting around to looking at them. Now, we did unbox these and play around with them on this past Monday's live, if I'm not mistaken. And then, of course, this past Wednesday, there was a pre-recorded drop of a holiday gnome that was a field test that I used. I'll show you those in a minute, but let's just look really quick. This is the box that they come in. It's a house brand, so they don't put a lot of money into the actual packaging. And of course, they are white labeling the product from a factory from across seas, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So you can see the half pans through the packaging, so you do know what you're getting. It says SoHo Urban Artist Watercolor pan set of 15. Flipping it over on the back, and we did run through this in the live, but I'll just read through it really quickly again. Clear plastic case, colors reactivate and lift effortlessly. Excuse me. Rich concentrated colors, perfect for watercolor sketches and painting. So non-toxic, does conform to the ASTM D4236 regulation. It gives you a list of all the colors that are included, although I will add the color listing on the back is not the order that they came in my package. I'm not sure if that's how it is in any other package that you get. And of course, this product is made in China, which goes back to me telling you earlier that they do white label their product from factories across seas. Okay, so when you pop these open, they come in this just kind of generic flip top, almost compact style palette. It has SoHo Urban Artist on the front there, and then of course you get 15 half pans of watercolor. Now, as you guys can see, those watercolors are semi-moist. They do sort of stay that way even after they dry. They are not, or did not come filled all the way to the very top of the brim. This is definitely a liquid poured formula that they allow to dry down, and you can tell that from the divots that come on the inside of the half pans. So that's pretty much that. You can remove the half pans from the palette. There is no information printed on any of the pans, so the only artist information that's provided with these paints will be the color names, and they're only going to be on the back of the box. Now, this set comes in different iterations. There's a 24 half pan set, there's a travel palette, there's an acrylic flip top travel palette. There's many different variations. Now, I'm not sure if those other paints are made in the same factory that these are, so this review will be geared towards this particular set. All right, so that's pretty much that. There was nothing to dry down. They dry pretty well. Now, these are semi-moist, as I said earlier, so they're gonna wet or come off the pan really easily. You do not have to pre-spray these. If you do, they're going to be super saturated, and you're going to be grabbing a lot of paint at one time. I'll also add that you're actually going to be grabbing a lot of paint at one time, period. As you can see, I have started to make a dent in some of those paints because the formula is semi-moist and they do re-wet and remove from the pan so well. You do tend to grab a lot of it at once. So I definitely suggest mixing it out on the palette before you take it over to your painting project. And because of those factors, the paints will wear down much quicker than a formula that dries down completely hard and is not semi-moist from the get-go. So just some things you may want to keep in mind if this is something that you're considering. Now, I swatched the paints out, and I do believe I swatched the paints out with you guys in the live. Since then, I've gone back and did a glazing layer just so I can really get a really good look at the opacity. Now, for the most part, all of these paints are going to be pretty much transparent. It is my belief that this is a dye-based formula versus a pigment-based, and there's a lot of reasons that lead me to believe that, but the main ones are all of the paints have a very uniform and similar feel when they dry down. There is nothing that has a difference from the next other than the fact that it's a different color. The second thing that leads me to believe that is that the ultramarine itself has absolutely no granulation in it. And of course, we know that a true PB29 is going to granulate regardless. And for that to be an ultramarine that has no granulation, I would be willing to believe that these paints are dyes that are laid on top of some substrate and has a binder in it. That you have that. So because they do have a dye base to them, every single one of them are transparent. You get a little haziness there on that yellow, as you can see, but not too much of anything else on any of the rest of the colors. Not even when you get here to the earth tones, which you would typically expect to be a little bit more granular, a little bit more opaque than your regular colors. So there was that. But you know, for what it's worth, they were bright, they're saturated. It does take a couple of layers in order to build saturation sometimes with these, especially if you're using them really watered down. Now, they do water down really well and they hold saturation. I will say that I noticed that some of the colors tend to break down. The dye or the paint itself tends to break down a little bit more in the water. So it does require you mixing much more paint into your water pigment ratio, or should I say water paint ratio, in order to get a really saturated color. I mean, you almost have to use them in mass tone from jump in order for it to be really bright and punchy. But if you're going to water them down beyond mass tone, you're definitely going to have to use more than one layer so that the color is not dull. There's going to be a shift from wet to dry, and that shift is going to depend more on the paper. The paints themselves have a little shift. Now you're going to notice that there's going to be more of a shift on this paper that I swatched them on, because this is a cellulose paper versus one of the paintings that we'll look at, which is done on 100% cotton, where I feel like the paints held more of a saturation or more of a vibrancy. But you know, that's kind of the case with any paints that you use on a 100% cotton paper. If you want to give paints the very best shot they have at performing, I definitely always suggest that you paint on a 100% cotton paper. Now, as most of you know already, I swatch on cellulose paper because it helps me see problems a little bit more. And then of course, this is a really almost smooth, this is Canson XL. So it has a tooth to it, but it's not too toothy at all. And that also lends to helping me see whether or not there's any differences in the paints when they dry down. So there's that. Okay, so let me show you some things that I did with them, and then we're going to talk about the color mixing. Well, actually, let me just show you guys the color mixing first. So here are some of the tests that I did, or some color mixing tests, and then we'll talk about this in a second as well. So here, if I'm not mistaken, I did a warm and a cool. I didn't do a split, which I normally do, but the split is going to be the best if you're trying to pull the primaries from the set, because you can pull primaries from here and just paint with primaries versus painting with all 15 of the half pans. But the convenience colors are there for you if it's something that you need or like to use. All of the colors mix really well to give secondary colors. All of the secondary colors are recognizable. Now, as to the different hues you're going to get in those colors, it will depend on what temperature paint you're using, whether it's a cool, whether it's warm, whether it's warm, whether it's cool, or whether it's a split, again, which isn't listed here on this paper. However, there are 15 half pans here. If you get the 24 half pans, you'll have 24 half pans. So there'll be plenty of colors. It's a pretty diverse range, and there's enough in here for you to feel like you're not missing anything. And you could paint pretty much any composition that you chose to from these, if they were something you decided to add to your art arsenal. Okay, so I did some more mixing here just to see if I could get some different mixtures. The ultramarine and the burnt sienna gave me a really pretty neutral. Here I use the ultramarine and the yellow ochre to see how much of an olive green I could get. And it was a really desaturated green. It would work really well for whatever I might need it to. Here was ultramarine blue and the green that's in the set. Now, this green is called Terra Verta, and there aren't any pigment numbers, so I can't tell you what it is supposed to be emulating, but I did mix it with ultramarine, and it went almost to a green gray, as you can see there. And then the Terra Verta in the yellow ochre, or in here I think it's called yellow oxide. Wait a minute, I don't see it. Red ochre, burnt sienna, violet. I don't. Yeah, it's yellow ochre. It's on there. So that is the yellow ochre. But again, they mix real clean. No mud was made. Nothing was streaky or, they worked like a typical budget watercolor. Now, here I did a salt test and they worked really well with the salt, as most watercolors typically do. And we are going to go ahead and do a lift test. If I can put my hand on my scrubber really quick. Here, I'll just use this brush. And let's see, do I have a paper towel laying around? I don't, but I do have a studio rag, so we'll use that. And let's see if we can lift. Now, this is a cellulose paper, so honestly, it should lend to lifting more than a 100% cotton paper would. And as you can see, we can get some lifting there. I mixed several colors down here on purpose. I even mixed in the vermilion, which I figured would be more staining than some of the other colors. So as you can see, you can lift. But I think they're dye-based, so they do stain a little bit more than some paints you might be used to. But there you go. You could definitely lift out like your secondary highlights if you needed some secondary highlights on a white. You could lift out something in order to make it round and contrast against the dark side or the shaded side. So although they don't lift back to complete white of paper, they will lift enough in order for you to get some highlights out if you need to. Here, I started to do just playing around with some wet in the wet. I wet the sky area, then I drop color into the bottom by the horizon. I wanted to see how much disbursement and flow I would get. And no, it did not flow all the way up to this level. I actually used the brush to push it around in order to get that level there. So they have a okay flow to them, but they are not going to get whoosh and whoop all over the paper, So if you're a whoosh and whoop person, if you like for your paints to whoosh and whoop, this is not the set for you, okay? So there were pretty much all of the standard tests that I'll do with the watercolor set. No complaints about the paints at all. They do have their drawbacks because they are a budget paint, and of course we don't have any pigment information, so I can't really get into whether or not these are going to be light fast. It would be my guess that they aren't, and I can't really tell you how the pigments are going to perform and behave because, well, we don't have a pigment list. So here are the paintings that I did with them. This is berries. I don't know. It was just a cute little play around, not think too much, do a painting type thing that we did when we first opened these paints in that live this past Monday. Basically, we painted the background and I showed you how to take the red splotches that was in the background and target those areas to turn them into berries. It's a really great way to learn how to build a composition from scratch and just from using a background. So definitely go check that out. It's not a masterpiece of a painting, but I do feel like it taught a lot of different techniques in this video. We did inking and everything, so definitely go check that out. They worked okay. This is Strathmore 400 series, 140 pound cold press acid free cellulose watercolor paper. So this is one of the ready-made, easy to grab, budget grade watercolor papers that you can find in most of your big box stores. I prefer Strathmore 400 over Canson XL, but that is the realm of paper that is in. And as you can see, they worked okay, but I do feel like it was a bigger shift from wet to dry on cellulose paper. And I do feel like I ended up layering a little bit more than I have to with these paints on 100% cotton paper in order to achieve the saturation and color that I wanted. So that's something to keep in mind. Secondly, I decided I wanted to do something that was a little bit more fine art. So this came out this past Wednesday where we painted the holiday gnome that I mentioned earlier in the video. And I really enjoyed this composition. I had a lot of fun putting this little guy off. I think he turned out so cute. I'm thinking about framing him and putting him on the mantle by the tabletop artist Christmas tree that I was telling you guys I want to do right before Christmas. And there is going to be a video coming out on that too, just so you guys can see that process. I'm working on ornaments and everything for it, so you can stay tuned for that. But this is this is Vibranium 100% cotton 140-pound cold press acid-free paper. Here's the thing. Oh, it's actually 160 pounds. That's what I was saying. Here's the thing. This is sort of a heavier paper than I'm used to, but it is so nice to paint on. And I really think this is white labeled by Fabriano Studios. I think this, well, Fabriano. I think this is Fabriano's 100% cotton paper. It just performs so beautifully, and I love the extra thickness of the paper, and it just held the saturation of the paints so well. So if you're going to be getting this set and using these paints, I definitely suggest grabbing yourself a pad of 100% cotton paper. But as you can see, they will work on cellulose paper with no issues, and you will be able to paint with them. So I did get a little experience painting with the paints before I decided to do this. And as I was using these paints, one thing kept popping into mind. They were eerily similar to the Hemi 24 half pan paints. I really believe that these are the same paints, that they are made by the same factory, whatever factory that may be. Both products, of course, are made in China. Now, I don't know, I'm thinking Hemi makes these for SoHo. That's really what I'm thinking. I mean, the pans are just too similar. The paint is too similar. They perform very similarly. As you can see, they look identical. Now, the color names between the sets are a bit different. There are some colors that cross over from the SoHo set to the Hemi set, but then there's some colors that are in the SoHo set that are not in the Hemi set, and there are some colors that are in the Hemi set that are not in the SoHo set. And my reasoning, or what I guess the reasoning behind that is, just like with any paint manufacturer that has a huge range of paints for you to choose from when you're putting together your own palettes. When you decide to white label, you have different colors that you can choose from. And it's just my assumption that, you know, SoHo chose colors that don't necessarily come in Hemi's actual half pan set itself. But some of the colors are quite similar and the same. So the lemon yellows were pretty much the same. Now they have different color choices for the warm and the cool reds in the set, but as you can see, those paints dry down exactly the same. Like if I was to take the headers off, I don't think you would be able to tell like which one was SoHo and which one was Hemi. Now the purple, the phthalo blue, although in the SoHo set it's not called phthalo blue, they call it cobalt blue hue, but it is definitely my best educated guess that it's a phthalo blue. In Hemi, it is called phthalo blue. Then the ultramarines are pretty much the same, although I will admit I feel like the ultramarine in the Hemi set is a little bit stronger. I really feel that SoHo paint is, I don't know, that ultramarine just didn't do it for me. And then of course the greens in the sets are different. There's a Terra Verta in the SoHo, and then this is actually olive green from the Hemi set, which you can see is absolutely beautiful. And then they both have the, it's just called black in Hemi, and it's carbon black, I believe. Is that what it is? No, deep black is what they call it in the SoHo. And for some reason, I don't know, maybe it's like batch variation or something, but the Hemi paints seem just a tad bit more saturated right off than the SoHo paints do. But I really believe that these are coming out of the same factory. I really do. So friends, my final assessment of all of this is that the paints are okay. Let's talk about price, and then I'll tell you what's what. So on Amazon, you can get this 15 half pan set for $20.97. Now, as I told you, SoHo is a house brand of Jerry's. So it is a Jerry's exclusive. You can only get it through Jerry's. Even on Amazon, it's being shipped by Jerry's. So on the actual Jerry sites, okay, let's back up. I got these from my local Jerry's, which I have found out a lot of the Jerry's brick and mortar stores are privately owned. So there may be some price differences between what you pay in store and what you actually pay on jerrys.com. Okay, so in store, this 15 half pan set, when I initially bought it, I think I paid, it was $19.99, if I'm not mistaken. I was in there today, and these were on sale for $15 in store. But again, I think that's privately owned, so they have some differences in the prices. Because on jerrys.com, The list price is $27.80, although they never sell anything at the list price. The regular price, the 15 half pan set, goes for $18.39. But as of the time that I'm recording this video, they're currently on sale for $10.99. So that changes so much about my recommendation for the paints. Because if you can get the 15 half pan for $10.99, which you would have to order it directly off of Jerry's website to get it, then yeah, I'd say the paints are worth all the hustle and bustle. $20, what I paid for them, I don't think so. Especially not when I can get the Hemi 24 half pan set with the 10 and all of the artist information Hemi provides with their paints for like 16, 17 bucks. You know, you can't really compare. Also, I've noticed that Jerry's has kind of gone up on the prices of some of their house brands. I shop Jerry's for a while now, and I always use their house brands: SoHo, Creative Mark, Creative Expression. They have a lot of different in-house brands that were really good and really affordable. But I've noticed slowly those house brands have started to increase in price. Now, they were worth it at the budget price, but when you think about the fact that I paid 20 bucks for these, you would pay 20 bucks for them on Amazon. If you don't catch them on sale, you're going to pay 20 bucks basically for them on jerrys.com. Then I would say no, they're not worth it. My recommendation will be, if you needed a beginner set, to grab the Hemi, because they're a tad bit better. You're getting more half pans, and it's more economical, and you're going to get the artist information with it. But if you can catch the 15 half pan set on sale for $10.99, that's actually worth it per pan for the quality of the paint. Although I'll still say the 24 half pan, although you're going to pay a few more dollars for it from Hemi, is still a better buy. Now, I did not include Vibranium Art in this because the Vibranium Art is a $65 set, simply because of the palette, the wooden palette that it comes in, and you're going to get the number 4 quill brush included in the Vibranium Art set. You know, not to say that it's worth $65, but they're really good paints. I just feel like, you know, for it to be this same paint in that set, you can just go with this set, especially if you don't want to spend $65. So there you have it, friends. Yes, on the SoHo set, if you can get it for $10.99. If it's not on sale for $10.99, then just go on Amazon, grab the Hemi set if you're looking for a beginner set that's going to be under $20 with really decent paints and the information for those paints included, if you trust the artist information coming out of Hemi's corner of the world. So hopefully you guys picked up on something that you saw, liked, or information that you have found helpful in this video. If you did, don't forget to sprinkle a little love. Give the video a thumbs up. You can share the video. Sharing is caring. Maybe somebody else out there would love to hear the review or my perspective on these particular paints, and it's going to help get it in front of other wonderful viewers just like yourself. If you're new or returning and you haven't subscribed, please consider hitting that subscription button and that notification bell so you'll know when we go live and when we upload. So video description has all of the relevant links. Friends, check out everything because it's all good information. Defyantarts website. Check out the social links. Follow me over on Instagram. Most recommended product list in case you're looking for a last minute Christmas gift. And you can go check out the artist gift guide that dropped about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago, and figure out those last minute gifts. In the meantime, enjoy your week. And remember, as I tell you at the end of every single video, my friends, just keep creating.